I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
Welcome to the Be Wise Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Wright. So today we're going to give a strong focus on White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. I'm just so enamored with her. I think she does a great job managing and controlling the room. You remember Judge Wapner, the People's Court? He controlled the courtroom. Judge Judy. People like that controlled the courtroom. Judge Ito during the O.J. Simpson trials. I love people who don't let people run amok in their environment that they own. I've been in scenarios where someone's supposed to be a leader. Barack Obama was not good at that. I remember people shouting from rafters, "Mr. President, Mr. President." And then they would just say things loud and just get out of control. And he would just kind of look down at his paper. Even when the congressman or whoever that was that yelled out, "You lie." He just didn't know how to control the room. And Donald Trump's really good at controlling the room, even when it gets out of hand. But Karoline Leavitt, she shuts people down, and she's becoming one of my favorite people. And I think of all of the White House staff and cabinet, yes, they all have their little moments where they'll jump out and say something that's social media worthy. It becomes viral, like when Vice President Vance said, "Margaret, I don't care," or something like that. But it was a moment. But Karoline Leavitt's going to have a lot of those moments. But here's the problem. Many of the White House press corps think that they have a right to be there, when it's really a privilege. I mean, of all of the media personality in the world, well, let's say in the United States, right? How many of them would love to be in the White House press corps? I think this, I don't know how many seats there are. But just imagine you are on a network, or you're at a newspaper or magazine, and you get the call that you are going to be White House press corps. Usually, it's someone on the inside that hooked you up, that gave you that privilege. Unless you're the big boys like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS. Those are the big boys. But there are small newspapers. And I'm not talking about the newspapers like San Francisco Chronicle, New York Times, Washington Post. I'm talking about the little guys. All right. That may not get a seat at the table. And I just think it's so awesome that if you get that privilege, that you respect it and you feel some type of honor about it, that you're going to be every day 10 feet away or 20 feet away from a White House press secretary. Say what you want about those people, the White House press secretaries. They're 1 degree separation from the president. They're giving you the message that the president wants you to hear. It's not like some guy who's 6 to 8 to 9 degrees from the president. The White House press secretary sits with the president every day and relays his message in the tone and the vocal speech that he wants you to hear it. If he's angry or if he's mad, the press secretary comes out to the press corps, and they're going to let you know the president's not very happy about that. But some of these people in the press corps, they act like that I'm supposed to be here. There are a million other media people that will love to take your seat. And if you don't treat it with respect, then you probably shouldn't have it. You probably shouldn't have it. But I'm going to show a clip in a little bit with Karoline Leavitt talking about how you have no right to be here. You don't have the right to stand 10 feet from the president and ask him questions. Those are privileges. And like I said, they should be treated as such. I'm going to take you back to 2018 when Jim Acosta, CNN reporter, got a little bit too big for his britches. And first of all, I'm ex-military. The president is actually the commander-in-chief. All right. So for me, if the lowest officer in the military says something or gives me a command, and I know all of you aren't in the military, but it's still a respect factor. If the lowest lieutenant said, sit down, I'm going to sit down. If he said, okay, enough, I'm going to stop talking. If he gave me an order, I need you to go do this now. Don't ask me any questions why, just go. Because if you don't react like that, people die. So in the military, we learn to take orders and we learn to not ask questions and we react. You can ask, sir, may I ask why? He can just simply say, no, let's go. And I'm saying that for a reason. When I show you this clip, you'll understand what I mean. Because I think as American citizens, and I know we're not a monarchy, I know we don't have a king, but it's just common decency that when a person says enough, and they're the president of the United States, it's enough. Stop. So if back in 2018, Jim Acosta got into a heated debate with Donald Trump, and I thought he was very disrespectful. Let's take a look at this.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in
Not
this
at all.
election
No, not
to
at all.
try to keep them?
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign.
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
Well, that's true.
But
they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN. All right. And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
Okay, so up to that point, Donald Trump was being very respectful, answering the press questions. He doesn't have to do that. He could ignore you and just point to another media person. Of course, Jim Acosta had the mic, so he was commandeering the conversation. But when he said, all right, enough, let me run the country, you run CNN. I think that Jim Acosta should have understood the assignment, got the clue, and pretty much moved on. Let's finish watching. Now it gets really, really heated.
May I ask one other question? Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Look at the intern there. She's trying to take his microphone.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. and the way you treat other people are horrible.
Yeah, so I personally, I think Jim Acosta was very disrespectful. There's a certain decorum to being in that room, and that's the day he lost his press credentials. They pulled him. The White House said he doesn't get to come in here anymore. I don't know if he did it or CNN actually sued. That shows some balls. That shows some entitlement. You actually go to a judge and you sue the White House for your press credentials back. All right. So let's just say you do get your press credentials back. I just want to answer any of your questions. Okay. If they're going to sue us to come in the White House, he gets no questions. We're going to ignore him. We're going to answer media all around him. Because there are actually some people in the back of that room that rarely ever get to answer a question. I remember seeing press secretaries would go, "Hey, Judy in the back, what do you got? Because you never get to ask questions here." It's always that front row, front couple rows. Very rarely does someone from the back get to ask a question. So anyway, yeah, he was very disrespectful. So here's a clip of Karoline Leavitt. And I prefaced all that stuff with Jim Acosta just to show that we're in a new era. The new White House, the new press secretary is not going to take that. The jig is up. It's not happening. Karoline Leavitt, ladies and gentlemen.
Official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night.
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus, many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the President questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
But isn't it retaliatory in nature is the argument, because there's a reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is. The Secretary of Interior has made that the official designation in the geographical identification name server. And Apple has recognized that. Google has recognized that. Pretty much every other outlet in this room has recognized that body of water as the Gulf of America. And it's very important to this administration that we get that right, not just for people here at home, but also for the rest of the world.
Sorry, I put a nut in my mouth just as he was finishing. I'll try not to smack. Anyway, yeah. So she set the record straight. She's like, listen, in this White House, that's not how it's going to go down. Okay. We have rules here. We have decorum here. I'm going to respect you. You're going to respect me. And that's just how it's going to go. If we say it's the Gulf of America and you can't come into the White House and use that terminology, and this is just one example, then don't come. It's like in the last clip when he asked about Russian collusion. He said, I don't want to talk about Russian collusion because it's a hoax. You are in the president's house. If you come in my house and you want to talk about something that I'm being accused of, not in my house. I can say to you very quickly, hey, listen, we're not going to talk about that in my house. That's not going to happen. So I'm glad that she put it down. And this Caitlin, Collins woman, she's known for, it's always CNN, isn't it? It's always CNN. MSNBC hardly ever gets to ask questions, but they may now in the future because of Karine being the last press secretary. She might get to ask some questions. Anyway, here is Caitlin Collins, the same reporter that was in the last clip. This is her deciding to challenge Donald Trump, and he kind of schooled her. Check it out.
Know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Black Hawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think with the names of the people, you mean the names of the people that are on the plane? You think that's going to make a difference? They are a group of people that have lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that. We'll be giving that very soon. We're in coordination with American Airlines. We're in coordination very strongly, obviously, with the military. But I think that's not a very smart question. I'm surprised coming from you.
It's okay, Colin. I'm surprised coming from you because you're a smart person and you're not very smart today. I mean, come on. Really? Really? So we talked about Karoline Leavitt and how she's holding it down in the White House. And like I said, she's one of my favorite people. I just want to show a few clips from her. You know, so far, we're not even in the first 100 days, and she has like a greatest hits reel. So let's see what she got to say.
Of the 3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office, can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are. Just during this pause, DOJ and OMB have actually found that there was $37 million that was about to go out the door to the World Health Organization, which is an organization, as you all know, that President Trump, with the swipe of his pen in that executive order, is no longer wants the United States to be a part of. So that wouldn't be in line with the president's agenda. DOJ and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money. So that's what this pause is focused on, being good stewards of tax dollars. And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office. From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
Thanks, Caroline. A question that we've asked your predecessors of both parties in this job. When you're up here in this briefing room speaking to the American public, do you view yourself and your role as speaking on, advocating on behalf of the president or providing the unvarnished truth that is, not to lie, not to obfuscate to the American people?
I commit to telling the truth from this podium every single day.
What kind of question was that? You know what a press secretary does. Why do you need her to clarify her role? Basically asking, are you going to be truthful? Are you going to bring us the unvarnished truth from the president? What was that?
I commit to speaking on behalf of the President of the United States. That is my job. And I will say it's very easy to speak truth from this podium when you have a president who is implementing policies that are wildly popular with the American people, and that's exactly what this administration is doing. It's correcting the lies and the wrongs of the past 4 years, many of the lies that have been told to your faces in this very briefing room. I will not do that. But since you brought up Truth Seek, I would like to point out while I vow to provide the truth from this podium, we ask that all of you in this room hold yourselves to that same standard. We know for a fact there have been lies that have been pushed by many legacy media outlets in this country about this president, about his family, and we will not accept that. We will call you out when we feel that your reporting is wrong or there is misinformation about this White House. So,
and she will call you out. Like those days of the press secretary just taking. I used to love The West Wing. I have it on my shelf behind me. When I take the video off, you'll see it. But one thing I loved about The West Wing was how the character in that show handled the press corps. And she was a little bit more tepid, a little bit more meek, mild, and the press used to beat up on her. You're not going to have that. Damn, I'm drawing a blank on the other press secretary with the red hair, who used to always circle back. I forgot her name. What's her name? Anyway, you remind me in the comments. We'll circle back. We'll circle back. She said that the whole time. We're not going to have any circling back with Karoline Leavitt. She is prepared. She's ready to go.
yes, I will hold myself to the truth, and I expect everyone in this room to do the same.
And Caroline, just
This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment, so it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We're also opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. And
I swear, if I was, I don't know, independently wealthy, and I didn't need to work my real estate job on a daily basis to provide for my family, I would definitely sign up for that, because I think I would get picked. Not because I'm so great. I just have a way of making a resume. And, but of course they would probably say, oh, well, we need to see some of your content. And then I don't have a lot of followers, except on TikTok. I think I got like 30,000, but I guess I don't have enough YouTube influence, or I don't know, but that's pretty cool. I know some pretty good content creators that deserve a seat at the table. So I really would like to see that going forward. I want to make sure she points them out too. So
you can apply now on our new website, whitehouse.gov/new media. Starting today, this seat in the front of the room, which is usually occupied by the press secretary's staff, will be called the new media seat. My team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex. So in light of these announcements, our first questions for today's briefing will go to these new media members whose outlets, despite being some of the most viewed news websites in the country, have not been given seats in this room.
yeah, so what that comes from is that that new media, those seats are the people who got Donald Trump elected. Sitting with Aiden Ross, sitting with Joe Rogan, sitting with Theo Vaughn, all the people, all these social media influencers, these podcasters, they did way better than the mainstream media, than the powerful media. So I am so happy that after getting him elected, that he's giving them a seat at the table. That's what Barron wants. That's what Karoline wants. That's what everybody around him wants. And you know what? Screw these journalists, these legacy journalists, these mainstream media people. Let's give a seat at the table to some of the podcasters, TikTokers, and social media people, the X people, the Rumble people. Rumble? Yeah, Rumble. I get Rumble mixed up with Bumble, but Bumble is the dating website. Yeah, Rumble. Yeah, let's give those people a seat, and we'll get some real news from those people. Hey, listen, That's all I got. It was a short show today. I did just want to give a shout out to Karoline. That's my dog. And I'll be watching her every day. In the meantime, you guys take care. Peace. Take care.